Well, day 3 at sea, and finally we've got the conditions that we were promised and that we were looking for. Got the apparent wind about 120 degrees aft now. Wind just coming down from the just east of north, and we're heading pretty much exactly 260 to Lunenburg, which is exactly what we want. Wind speed about 15 to 20. Every part of my instrumentation works apart from the anemometer that measures the wind speed. Wind angles, great, everything else is good, but not hard to judge what's going on here. So yeah, 15 to 20, 1 to 2 meter swells, and really nice sailing. The boat's just trolling along at 9 or 10 knots. It'd be very easy to power up a little bit, but I'm actually doing a little job, so I've turned her down somewhat and flattened her out. At the moment, I know that ahead of me the wind is going to come around to the southwest, so I want to cut slightly to the left of my course, slightly more south, knowing that later on, when I get that southerly, it'll push me back up and back up onto my route. I don't want to go right down this path, because later on, when that southerly comes, it'll knock me north of route. So, jobs are doing at the moment, drying the clothes after doing some washing last night, which was very nice. Just had a little tidy up of a few different bits and bobs inside the boat. Just trying to work out where things live. Now, main job here now is I'm get myself back in the shot. Hello. So this is the bed. It's in 2 parts, or the seat, however you want to put it. The covers on deck, just getting some UV and getting freshened up a bit. Inside here is the engine, and I guess if we take this off, we can also see where the pumping gear is. So the engine on this boat has to do a few different tasks. Number 1, it's got to be able to drive the boat, and number 2, it's got to be able to charge the batteries, and number 3, it's got to be able to operate the ballast system. I guess it has an ancillary usage. It also is a heater. So this is the pump at the back here. This is the ballast pump. On the right hand side is the intake for the pump, and on the left hand side is the output from the pump. It just turns in one direction, round and round and round, driven by belts, and the belts are there coming from the engine, and they're engaged on an electromagnetic clutch, basically a solenoid inside that pulley either engages or disengages when we press this button here, this little guy. So engine's running, press the little button, and then the pump engages. It just turns one way. It sucks in on one side, it blows out on the other side. Then with a system of pipes and valves and what have you, we can suck the water in from one place and blow it out another place. I.e., we can suck it from outside and blow it into the tanks. We can suck it from the tanks and blow it back outside. We can suck it on this boat. Can you? No. On like Challenger and Charger, you can suck it from one tank and blow it to the other tank. You can't do that on this boat. What you can do on this boat is you do gravity transfer, which is that when the boat's sailing along and you want to get ready to tack, all the water is on the windward side. You open the valves on the upside tanks and open the valves on the downside tanks. The water flows down to the downsides, close all the valves again, tack the boat, and then that's gravity transfer. A lot of spare belts sitting here, which is great for that pulley system that drives the pump. And then over here, just find my footing, this is the charging system. So we've got the standard alternator that comes with the engine. That one is purely now for charging the start battery, and it does its charging through the Balmar charge controller, which is here, this guy in here, and this is the thing which is then able to bring the charge up. When I switch on the Balmar system, which is just here, it engages the circuitry in the Balmar system, which then creates a very efficient charging curve for the alternators. We talked before about the fact that normally an alternator, if it's in a truck or something, really it's just there for recover the energy that was lost during the starting procedure, and then a long trickle charge, which is going to give enough power to run the lights and the radio and all that stuff, and enough to charge the battery, keep the battery until next time it's needed for starting. This is different. We want it to run for a very short period of time, so the engine's only on for a little while, only uses a little bit of diesel, and then we want it to charge a lot. So the maximum output from a little alternator like that is probably 50 amps, something like that. That 50 amp can be engaged directly at 14.1 volts, sent directly to the starter battery, and get it charged as quickly as possible. On the other side of the system, we've got this guy here. This is obviously a much bigger alternator. Now you're looking more like 200 amps. I think it can go a little bit further than that. 200 amps at 12 volts. It again is fed by a Ballast charge control. It's over here, and this, just get it, is the little pen that comes with your Ballast, or screwdriver rather, that comes with your Ballast, and it has a little magnet on the top here, and the magnet, when you touch the panel of the Ballast in a particular position, allows you to change settings on the Ballast. So what we've got going on today is that there's obviously a lot of belts driving here. We've got this one, which would be your kind of ubiquitous fan belt, although it's not driving a fan. It's driving the water pump on the engine. It's driven by the pulley at the very bottom there, and it's driving the alternator. Now, for those in the know, obviously the engine is pretty corroded and pretty messy, but this is a realistic engine. This is what engines look like on older boats. It's 18 years old. It's done a lot of work. It's in a wet, nasty environment, and the boat, as we know, has been left for a long time, so any tiny little bit of corrosion has just developed as far as it wants to go. It needs cleaning and tidying, but a specific aspect of that corrosion is that the pulley wheels for the belts are themselves they've got corrosion on. So you see this guy here? Yeah. And that is a bit of a problem, because the corrosion then, it's harder than the belt itself, so it grinds the belt as the belt's going past. And the belts don't really stretch. What happens is that they get thinner, and then because of that they are longer on the wheels. They have a greater internal diameter, because the internal diameter has been worn off. So I've cleaned that up with a screwdriver. Might do a little bit more, but I've made the adjustment on the alternator. You'll see there's a spanner like hanging on the side there. I think it was one of the very early jobs I did on this boat. I think I've got some video of that actually. Maybe put that in here now. When the fan belt's got to fit, it's got to fit. I gotta go. The only belt I had on board is 1 inch too long, so 2 bits off the puller and a spanner. We're on our way. So basically what we're doing today now, I've just nearly finished, is this entire charging array, this secondary shaft here that comes through, is driven at the bottom there by the pulley, comes up and drives here. This drives the alternator, passes through this shaft, and it drives the ballast tank. What you have to do is, there's a little bolt on the side down there, and that allows this carriage to move left and right. With these alternator belts off and this alternator out of the way, I can get 2 bolts at this end, 2 bolts at that end. I can then use that adjustment to tension the entire carriage and tension these 2 belts. Once these are tight, which they are now, I then bring the alternator back in position, and then use this one on this little curved adjuster arm here. Use the breaker bar to lever the alternator out into position, and then tighten the bolts up, and then this alternator's tight. So tight, tight, and then tight. This went tight when this carriage was slid across. This little guy over here, very simply, this bolt here, and then that guy's gone tight. So how did I know to adjust the alternator belts? Because it was squealing, because there's black dust starting to issue forth from the engine bay, which is the rubber burning down, and because when the Ballast are coming on at the beginning of the charge cycle, I should see the little voltage things over here, I should see them come rapidly after 40 seconds delay. When the engine comes on, the charge starts to be pulled out of the alternators, and I should see the voltage go right up to 14.1 very quickly. What's been happening is it's been coming up like 13.2, 13.4, 13.6, now I hear a lot of squealing, 13.8, I can smell rubber, 14, it's kind of there, it's squealing a lot, there's a lot of rubber, so obviously it's slipping. So it's all good now. I'm going to crack that up and get it going. I had the engine on for a good period last night. I trying to keep all my tools here on the engine, the temptation is to put them onto the galley and put them onto the sink and put them onto the, and you end up with everywhere. My dad was a fantastic mechanic, much better mechanic than he was sailor, and we had a boat which was basically a floating workshop, and my poor old mother would not go on the boat because although everything worked perfectly, it was all covered in black marks and all the rest of it. So I got one of these, pretty cheap one. It's got a little test thing. Oh, I don't like that red. Ready, Amber? Amber, yeah. I know, I double checked and rechecked this one. It's sitting on 12.8, but I think it wants to sit on 13 to show me a green light. And then it's got a little light, and then when you turn this guy on, then it's able to give you 12 volt power at the back, or you can take a power off here. So it's all it's got is just a little battery inside it. The point for this, it'll start a diesel engine up to 1400 cc, which is this one. So if everything goes completely Pete Tong, make sure it's turned back off. If everything goes wrong, I can start the engine, like, I don't know, I've got a problem at the moment with the battery parallel, okay? So the battery parallel basically doesn't do what it says on the packet. So I'm never quite sure if they're paralleled or not. Now I'm pretty sure they're not paralleled because I can see separate voltages for the engine and the main batteries, but I don't know where it's up to. So with that kind of thing in mind, when you've got things like an autopilot running and it's drawing 50 watts on average, so it says, if you had some situation brew up on deck, I've had this before with like spinnakers blowing out, things getting in the water, then you can end up getting really distracted. You come back inside the boat and discover autopilot, well, you come back inside because the autopilot's crying out for power because it's at 10.8 volts or something. You come inside the boat and discover that your battery parallel was closed and actually all your batteries are flat. So what do you do then? And I've seen, I remember in the, was it the 2000 Vendée Globe, Micheal Desjoueaux, oh, I left the charger down. The cool thing with those little battery power packs is I can charge it with the mains power, but it's also got a little 12 volt charger in there as well. So it can trickle charge when the engine's on. Or theoretically, I think I could trickle charge it off my little solar panel. Micheal Desjoueaux in the, I think it was 2000 Vendée Globe, he ran out of battery power entirely, and they had to work out a way of starting the engine. So what he did is he wrapped a line around the pulley on the engine, made a load of blocks that took that line up and out of the cabin and to the back, and then he crash jibed the boat. The boom went flying across with all the force that these open 60 booms have, and that was enough to pull start a 1400cc diesel engine. Like, well done. I would much rather just have some kind of other option available. So that's mine. It's the first time I've had one. I probably won't ever need it, but I'd rather have it. What I've done in the past with like Challenger when it's happened is take the 12 volt batteries which remain and then coupled them in series, so they should give 24 volts if they were working properly, but because they're both flat, they're giving like 20 volts, and then feed that 20 volts to the 12 volt starter motor on the engine, which the starter motor does not like, and burns out the windings, but it starts, and that's the difference between failing to arrive and arriving. Right, so yeah, so we're all getting here. So I'll crack the engine up. I suppose we can. It is YouTube. It should show you everything, right? Look, there's a key. Now we can't hear each other, right? Okay, so everything's running. All right, and then you turn on the Balmars. I'll show you here. Little lights come on. This guy's very merrily making its way up now. Incredible, good. And it's not squealing. And it doesn't smell of rubber. So I think we've done a good job. Good. All right, well, bit of engine talk. Meanwhile, on deck. Well, not quite as exciting this time as perhaps making our way through a storm or a big spinnaker run or the first run out from the dock, but you know, that's what life at sea is about. Sometimes you're having a dramatic Caribbean landfall, and other times you're just tensioning an alternator belt and making your dinner. But I hope that's what this channel is about. It's a more realistic look at sailing and offshore life, and I hope that some of these little bits of information I'm able to share with you end up being useful, end up enhancing what you're doing at sea, and end up perhaps saving you from a tight situation. So thank you as always to those who have liked and subscribed and given comments. Your support really is driving this channel. Cheers.